So here's where I've been blessed. Regardless of whether you're a massage therapist, a healer, if you're somebody who just wants to be a more conscious parent, if you're someone who's out in business wanting to make an impact in the world, regardless of where you are in your life, it's like you can't evolve until you go through this fundamental shift internally into being enough in who you are. And so I've been blessed enough to offer people a solution. It's like a universal widget for awesomeness. And,
Fantastic.
and the very second
Coin.
and the very second, like they realize that they're not the problem and they're the solution, and that they really do have everything inside of them, and that we can be empowered regardless of where we are to be aware and to be conscious and to be awake. In that moment, whatever it is that they're doing just takes off. And so I've been so fortunate to see that over and over again, because of course, the biggest obstacle, limitation that we're dealing with in life, whether it be our spiritual practice or our relationship, our dynamic, is ourselves.
Yes.
But the problem is that nobody really knows how to navigate themselves, right? So we have all of these parameters around what's okay, what's not okay, you know, how we're meant to feel, how we're not meant to feel, how we're meant to think, how we're not meant to think, right? And it's this become this incessant checklist that's just overwhelming.
Yes.
Like we can't even deal with it all. It's like, it's too much, right? So how do we get back to the simplicity? Well, we get back to the simplicity by realizing that there's nothing in life that we have to resist. That every single thing that's happening in oneness is happening as we are. Okay, so our evolutionary journey is basically at the most foundational level, everything's happening to us, which means we're a victim. At the level slightly above that is everything's happening for us, which means we're beginning to walk this journey of empowerment. At the level beyond that, we have 100% accountability and responsibility for our experience of being human, and we realize that life is happening as us. Okay, so I want to provide people a bridge, a very compassionate, soft, loving place where there's no judgment, there's no criticism, there's no need to evaluate your performance, there's no need to change anything in your experience, but to work with your experience, to work with your humanity, to work with all of these feelings that are rising up inside of you that you've been taught to in some way resist. And you know, as a father of four, I've been blessed enough to take my kids to play in the local park, and you know, there's two versions of parenting that's happening. You know, a child falls over, bangs its head, runs up to the mother, and mother says, "I didn't raise you to be that way. What's wrong with you? You're supposed to be tough. You know, you're embarrassing me." And in that moment, of course, that poor child is re-traumatized, right? And then, but there's another version of parent, and the other version of parent is that parent gets down to the level of the child, says, "Where does it hurt? Let me kiss it better." And in that moment, that child is met, and that child is able to go back to playing again.
Right.
And at some point, it's like we have to cultivate that same relationship with ourselves. You know, it's like, it's not all of a sudden, "Oh my God, I'm thinking thoughts. Oh, I'm thinking thoughts." It means like all of my meditative practice and everything that I've been doing isn't working. I'm wrong. I'm failing enlightenment school. This is horrible. You know, maybe in my next 10 lifetimes, I'll get it, right? We don't have to go down that rabbit hole. You know, in that moment, we can just be, you know what? Wow, I'm present to the fact that I'm thinking. That's the end of it. Same thing with our emotions. You know, rage is a part of life. We can deny it all that we want, but it doesn't go away. And then it comes up. And when it comes up with such a force that it almost takes over you. Right? Yes. So everything that we deny and everything that we avoid becomes basically almost like this sub-personality that takes over us. It's like then we become some other person. And so what I want to do is empower people in diffusing all of those inner charges and recognizing that all of these labels that we have around the human experience are false. That actually we can experience all of these things consciously. We can experience our anger consciously. And there isn't a single person in the world right now that doesn't have a hard time with their anger, right? We can experience our anxiety consciously. We can experience our sadness consciously. And the very second we're empowered to do that, everything begins and ends inside of us. We realize that we're the source of everything. We realize that regardless of how convincing the role our spouse is playing, right, of being the person who is supposed to be blaming for everything, that actually after a while we get to a point where we realize, wait a minute, it's actually not about them. They don't have the power to make me feel anything that I don't already have inside of me. So what I want to do is guide people into the maturity of this transcendent way of soulfully living, where all of a sudden, no matter what's happening, we're able to meet it fully. And in meeting it fully, we're able to return to peace as quickly as we can, so that we can be empowered and live from a place of power within.